This is Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line there.
We're looking at 10-5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
Hi podcast listeners, I hope you're well. Welcome back this month for another deep dive into our wonderful world of sailboat racing. Wherever you are in the world, if you're a sailing fan, you'll have definitely heard the big news early this month that a year after Emirates Team New Zealand successfully defended the America's Cup in Auckland, they've announced the venue for the next edition. It's exciting. And this month, we've got the lowdown and what all that means as we talk to several of the next America's Cup's key stakeholders. Before we dive headlong into the world of the America's Cup, a big thank you to all of you who got in touch after last month's podcast. If you haven't listened to my chat with Jason Carrington, stick it on the playlist. He's a man with a few stories to tell. We do love to hear from you, so thanks to all of you that took the time to head over to buymeacoffee.com. It does make a difference. If you're listening for the first time or you enjoy listening to the podcast and want to support it, it's super simple. Go to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast. It's quick, it's easy, and it's greatly appreciated. Right, so what about this month? As we all know, the sport of sailing has a fairly unique trophy in the world of international sport. It's the oldest trophy in world sport, we know that, and it's governed by the principles set out in a document that originally dates back to 1857. There have been a few amendments, but that document, the Deed of Gift, lays out the principles of competition around the America's Cup. It's a surprisingly short document, but one of the overriding principles is that the club holding the cup, the defender, in this case the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, in agreement with the club challenging for the cup, in this case the Royal Yacht Squadron, makes all of the rules relating to the running of the cup. That includes sailing regulations, the dates, the number of races, and also, of course, the location. Not a big deal, right? Wrong. In the 36 previous runnings of the Cup, only 3 times has a club elected to hold racing outside of its country's waters. 2 of those instances saw landlocked Swiss team Alinghi having to defend the Cup abroad, as without an open ocean in Switzerland, they had no choice. So the Cup was in Valencia. And once more recently, Oracle Team USA chose to defend in Bermuda. It's unusual, but it's also a decision surrounded by all manner of issues, which is why this month we're going to talk to several of the key stakeholders involved in the decision to take the next edition of the America's Cup to the Spanish city of Barcelona. I hope you enjoy the time I spent discussing the venue selection for the next America's Cup.
Cliche is to say it was a difficult decision, but actually it was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 priorities, they're all say team, right? Did we try and get the money in New Zealand? Absolutely.
The man spearheading the decision on the venue for the next America's Cup is the man that heads up the New Zealand Defenders, Emirates Team New Zealand. On the water, he was a fierce competitor and boasts an enviable sailing CV. For almost 2 decades, he's been the driving force behind the success of New Zealand's America's Cup team. But back at his home in Auckland, the America's Cup is a passionate subject, and the decision to move the venue of AC37 from New Zealand waters is to some controversial. But as we'll now hear, it's not a decision Grant Dalton took without considerable thought. Grant Dalton, congratulations on the venue announcement. It's exciting news. Tell us, what does Barcelona have as a cup venue that's influenced the decision to come here for AC37?
Well, there was a number of criteria we needed to fulfil to make a final decision, and it came down to 3. And they're all really good, and all could have done an amazing job. And they were Barcelona, Malaga, and Jeddah. and each had its own advantages and disadvantages. I think in Barcelona's case, one simple thing is the word Barcelona. I mean, it conjures up emotions of an amazing city, one of the great cities of the world. And I guess you could just say, if you're trying to pick 3 cities in the world to host the America's Cup, what would they be? And I can guarantee one of them would be Barcelona. So you tick that box straight away. It has really good infrastructure, because any event, America's Cup event, needs a pretty decent infrastructure around the port land or around the harbour area. And in Barcelona, the port control all the main assets that we need in terms of land, infrastructure, etc. So really doing a deal with Barcelona is partly doing a deal with the port itself, and they've been amazing. I mean, they're just so enthusiastic about it. The venue itself, from a sailing point of view, is great. You yourself know very well how good it can be. And there's still the infrastructure, and it's actually being redeveloped partly because of this, around the Olympic port. And really the people of Barcelona that we dealt with, or are dealing with, who are just unbelievably enthusiastic, in some ways see this as their next step from 92 Olympics. Yes, I know the Olympics were a long time ago, but they certainly have very vivid memories of them, as actually I do too, So it basically ticked all the boxes for us.
It was quite a process, wasn't it, Grant? I mean, 4 bidding venues, if we include Ireland, all with very viable bids, as I understand it. How difficult a process was it to make that final decision? Give us a glimpse into that.
Yeah, I mean, the cliche is to say it was a difficult decision, but actually it was. The guys, Russell and Tube, flew up, and we're working really, really heavily with Stu and Leslie from Origin right from the very start, who've been outstanding, because we basically were running almost 24 hours a day for nearly a year, which we were working our day and they were working the European or the English day. So we had the process running, and we talk every single morning at 7 o'clock New Zealand time, no matter which sort of daylight saving you're in, with a Zoom call between us. I mean, that's every day. Now, that doesn't sound like much of a big deal, but that's every day. And I can think I missed one call that I can remember, and maybe Hoops missed one or someone missed one, but basically we never missed a call. So we were right on it and stayed on it the whole time. And, just absolute credit to Stu and Leslie, and what they were able to, help us achieve. We got down to the 3. Ireland was right there at the end, and then they pulled out after we decided they weren't in. So maybe, I don't know whether that was a coincidence or not, but that was on the Monday, and we announced it on the Tuesday. So we got right down to, we announced it on the Tuesday, which was I'm going to say the 28th of March, 29th in New Zealand, which is the protocol sort of timeline date or timing. And that was a Tuesday. And we didn't make a final decision until the Sunday. And for that decision on the Sunday, we brought over, or asked to come over, 2 of the key people out of Barcelona, because we wanted to talk through. It was sort of like, the jury retiring and coming back to ask some questions. And then at that point in the afternoon, I think like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we said, yes, it's Barcelona. Now, one of the interesting things about it is now Tuesday is the announcement. I mean, you're 48 hours away from the announcement, and Barcelona doesn't know they've got it until 48 hours before. But one of the things which was really important to us, and it sounds obvious, but I'm not sure some people would make this step, is we wanted absolute verification that effectively nothing could go wrong, and that no matter who was in power, whether which party was in the region or the city or wherever, that this was rock solid, and it would be it wouldn't matter who was there. So we wanted a verification from the actual General Etat, from the region, a signed declaration that it had actually not just been signed off by the president, but that the whole region had voted on it. and agreed it. So that, there was belt and braces. And their meeting was on the Tuesday morning. Remember, we were announcing this thing on the Tuesday. Their meeting, which was their weekly meeting, was on the Tuesday morning, and it was put in as quickly as an agenda item. As we were driving to the announcement from our hotel into the palace of the region and the council palace, if you like, in what they call the Regent Palace, literally across the square from each other. They were within 40 metres of each other. As we were driving there, the cup was already there to announce it. The call came through from Louis Sains, a lawyer working on it, that it had been now officially sanctioned by the region. So absolute belt and braces. That's how tight it was. And, it seems to be something in our DNA that we tend to do that quite a bit. But we were driving. Like, it's a 3-kilometre drive and we're halfway there. So it was all pretty tight at the end, but it always seems to be. But, the thing is that they're just amazing. They're just so enthusiastic. They've got such great hopes and dreams for what the Cup can bring to Barcelona. And it fits perfectly with us as well. But it's not to say that both Malaga and Jeddah would not have done an amazing job as well.
It's quite flattering for the Cup, I guess, and for sailing generally, Grant, that 4 significant venues were offering to extend all that effort and money, of course, to host the Cup. I mean, when I think about that, it's not an Olympics or a FIFA World Cup, but it's still a big investment. I mean, how surprised were you that 4 venues went all the way to the end of the process with, fully viable offers?
Well, I think the question's another one. How surprised was the rest of the world and all our critics that it even happened? There's some people that they still wouldn't have got the lemons out of their mouth, because, I think we did quite a nice job of effectively the perfect America's Cup misinformation, and people thought we were struggling. It was good to keep it that way, because effectively that meant that the smug crowd in New Zealand were just sitting there thinking we were coming, back cap in hand. I even saw an interview, literally a TV interview with the mayor in Auckland saying, when they come back, because they can't get a deal away, I'm hearing, it's not going to be easy for them here. And I just sat there, just quietly watching that thinking, no, guess what, mate? I think one of the other things that people completely got wrong is that Jeddah was some sort of smokescreen stalking horse. It wasn't. It was incredibly real. And one of the really amazing things about this is the enormous support that the squadron had for what we were doing, and they were kept instantly in every piece of this across it. And Aaron, the Commodore, really were backed up by Gillian, etc., who was a lawyer in her own right and originally worked for Oracle at one point in, I think, Valencia. They came under some pretty serious mortar fire. And it went on for, for a year. But they stood strong and they trusted and they believed and they knew what they were being told was, effectively a bunch of porkies. And I've got nothing but, admiration and credit, because they're a yacht club. They don't. Their job is not to play this rough and tumble. So I think I wasn't surprised, because we always knew those bids were going well, and so for quite a while we knew that this was on. I think the mistake, my first mistake, was to say that we could do it in September, announce it, which was 6 months after the Cup, which was just too tight. Yeah. And if you look retrospectively, which frankly I should have probably done at the timing of other event announcements or venue announcements, I think Bermuda was 14 months, and I think Valencia was even longer than that. So to hit it in 12 months was probably still pretty good.
So we have the decision, Barcelona 2024. Looking at the sailing landscape as a whole, how big a deal do you think it is holding the Cup in Europe? It's not perhaps that obvious to a lot of people, but there are some significant upsides, right?
Well, time zone's one of them. But again, you've got to go back a step and say, well, why are we doing it in the first place? Because, we're true blue. We're Kiwis. And, the team will always be the priority. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 priorities, they're all say team, right? In saying that, though, we want an absolutely amazing event. It kind of makes sense. With a defender, we have a responsibility to that. But the team will always be the priority. And so, you can't take money out of this equation because, as I stood in a number of meetings and more articles, negative articles against the team and myself that I could even count if I started counting now and it's finished in 2 hours, in New Zealand, completely misunderstood, and still do, the actual original motive. And the original motive was to put the team in its best financial position to be able to have a chance against amazingly strong teams coming at us to three-peat. And so that was always hellishly important. And in fact, it was the start, as I say, the primary starting position. Because the way it's structured financially is the event now basically is paid for. If we didn't spend or didn't raise 1 cent from today, and we will raise a lot of money in Barcelona, I believe, the event is now guaranteed. And the team has a contribution towards its operations as well. But in saying that, though, there has been the obvious benefits that come by bringing it to Europe. One is sponsorship, one is teams, or ability maybe now to get more teams, and the other one is obviously time zone from a TV point of view. And we will maintain our free-to-air policy for next time. TV is not a revenue earner; it's a cost, a significant cost, because if you take it as a get eyeballs rather than try and create revenue. And frankly, I don't even think you'd create much more revenue if you took it pay to air anyway. You just open the time zone on it so much more. I think also you open the fan base in terms of people being able to come to the venue for obvious reasons. But in saying that, we want to effectively be in part of putting packages together to bring as many Kiwis as we can. It's interesting to look at the dynamics within Barcelona of why. Why Barcelona? Why a city that had in 2019, I'm going to say, 34 million tourists. Why would they want this? They've got enough tourists. And part of the reason, and I never really understood this till the mayor explained it to me, is that the quality of the tourism within Barcelona has dropped. And so as they emerge from COVID, like all cities looking for how the hell are we going to get out of this, and certainly in a city where tourism is a massive earner, this is part of a catalyst of a higher end sort of tourist.
Grant, we've seen you and the team celebrate winning this cup, and we've also seen what it means to you in the past when it's not gone to plan. I mean, your passion, your determination can't be in doubt. So with that in mind, how hard a decision was it not to defend on home waters?
No, it was an incredibly easy decision because it wasn't possible. So if you go right back to the basis of the team comes first, and the team will always, we're all of that same belief that that's kind of our DNA. The team. That's why we don't have stars selling underpants, doing underpant ads. So no, it was obvious very early on the money wasn't available. Now I know that you could interview 400 people that would tell you the money was available. Well, I can tell you it wasn't. And did we try and get the money in New Zealand? Absolutely. There's a really poignant meeting. Shirley was in it too. We had with three guys that all three of them could have funded the whole thing on their air in their morning tea time. And we had a meeting with those guys. I'm going to say November last year. I can't remember the exact date. It was around about then. And they sat there, and subsequently, they've been given the story about how we were trying to, sell it offshore and what a bunch of rogues we were and all this sort of thing. Once they were explained exactly the reality and the real numbers, not the made-up numbers that suited some agenda of other people, one of them said to me, looked at me and he said, and this guy is incredibly wealthy, even by and New Zealand standing, he's incredibly wealthy, but he's actually world sort of wealthy in some respects too. He said, you got a chance of raising that sort of money privately in this country. And he just confirmed what I already knew. And the interesting thing about one of those three guys that was in that meeting subsequently has become actually quite close. And a guy I didn't really know, I certainly knew he was. And, we WhatsApp and text each other quite a bit now, So once it was obvious the money wasn't there, then the decision was incredibly easy.
How's that decision gone down at home, Grant? I mean, as you say, you can't defend against challengers of this standing without a strong team. I mean, that's pretty easy to see. How have the fans taken the decision?
How have the fans taken the decision? Look, I mean, obviously not necessarily that well, but it was an interesting, this Kiwi home defence thing that got, kind of rolling. They put up a fan wall, which I saw, like these snapshots of people who were doing these little videos. We should be keeping it here, da-di-da-di-da. And it was a collection of white male, mostly bald like me, over 50 to 60-ish, pretty much Auckland base. And that was just an indictment to me of exactly what was so totally wrong with this. You need to keep it in New Zealand. So I think that it was more a minority, but it was, like all these things, it was a noisy minority. One of the things that I also believe is because we've won the Cup, relatively easily in the, Bermuda and then in Auckland, and we should have won it a lot easier in Auckland, frankly. We should have won it 7-0 on our air instead of having to actually, get out of the way we had to start sailing better. But I think people have started to believe it's quite easy. Team New Zealand turns up, they'll win it, they're just that good. Well, wow. It isn't like that. And like I know, that it's just not like this thing. It's hard to win, really hard to win. And so, they'll just sort of raise a bit of money and kind of turn up. Well, it doesn't work like that. You don't actually even have, I went as far as to say, and I believe this, that it wasn't even a matter of defending it and losing it. It was a matter of even being able to make the start line. Because often I quote 2003 as the absolute disaster of sport in New Zealand, in my living memory, of the way they capitulated and were so bloody hopeless. And it's very often quoted that they didn't lose it because of money, because they had enough budget. And the answer is they did have enough budget. But they had enough budget for the people that could barely, they probably would have done it for free because it was so amazing to be part of Team New Zealand in the first place. They could barely get out of the viaduct of their inability, So it is about money. And it becomes self-propelling. If you lose a couple of decent guys, they take a couple of decent guys with them. The next 5 guys think we may as well go somewhere else too because this thing's coming apart. And eventually you end up re-employing sort of bottom up, and you just end up as the bottom dweller, employing teams that are left that are not even remotely capable. So Team New Zealand did lose the America's Cup in 2003 because of money. Simple as that.
Grant, there were 4 teams eagerly waiting to hear this decision. What's the timeline? What does it look like now moving forward? And what are the key moments we can expect to see now that the clock's very much ticking?
Well, already the teams are calling me saying, when can we move to Barcelona? If you use Alinghi as the example, they've really got a home. So this is perfect. They'll get there as soon as we can, make it accommodate them. The timeline really is, first of all, the bases, because there's work to do by the ports to just lay the ground effectively within the port area for the bases themselves. So that's the first timeline, and really that's the first, second, third, and fourth timeline. The bases, the teams will make their own decisions when they will arrive, and onward we go. From an organisation point of view, we're a ground up build. I mean, the event has one employee at the moment, and that's me. So that's got to change real quick, because we want to create a significant event, because we've got a significant venue and we've got a significant infrastructure ability with people who want to make a big event. I think that's a really important point. And it disappoints me in New Zealand in that it was, this will just turn up and doesn't matter if you lose and the event will just sort of be great. Well, it won't be great because the day that Team New Zealand loses the first race, assuming they can even, the team would have even got to the first race, the whole thing will collapse like a house of cards. So for that reason, we're working with the city of Barcelona to bring this up, to a major level. But first and foremost priority is getting the ability for the teams to be able to come to the venue.
I can remember interviewing you a couple of months after the team won in Bermuda, and you mentioned how the elation of victory was soon overtaken by this feeling of deep responsibility. Now that you have to deliver an America's Cup regatta, you did it in Auckland at a time of unprecedented global upheaval. How's that feeling of responsibility now, Grant? I'm guessing it's not diminishing in any way.
Well, the interesting thing about we did deliver it in basically a country that was closed, as you know. A huge responsibility, but one, we've got the first pillar spot on in Barcelona, and I'd be struggling to find too many people that would disagree with that. And now we have to make sure we have a team that is worthy of being able to defend, because that ain't a small job. Because while we've been working on this, and and not distracted, because I think the guys are pretty good at multitasking. The other teams, all they're doing is designing boats to try and beat us. So we got to get in and think about the team as well. Well, I do too.
Finally, Grant, the decision is made. You can now look forward to getting your head down and delivering us an America's Cup from a major global destination. How excited are you looking forward to 2024?
Well, I don't really think about that. What has excited me to this point is that, particularly in the last few weeks, is just the commitment of the people that we're dealing with. And I mean, we're dealing with significant people within the Catalan region, significant people within the government of the Catalan region and within the city and within the port, and private people that have done, exceptionally well themselves too. So that's really exciting. That's a whole new, new blank canvas for the Cup to work on. And we all know that Valencia was really, really successful, but it was a very different era, and that's, can't be misunderstood. Well, it is, I think, slightly misunderstood. And if you just quote or think about the Olympic Games now, and they're sort of tending to go to cities now, or trying to keep the billions down a bit, that have infrastructure that can be utilised in some cases already, stadiums as such, but also has usage afterwards. And I think one of the important things is that it's not necessarily just what we bring, it's what we leave behind, and that's a key part. And so with infrastructure, with youth sailing, with women's sailing, with hydrogen, these are all really, really important pillars to us as well, and those are really exciting. Yeah, the Cup's exciting, it will be amazing, and the guys are now focused heavily on what's the right way to defend, and try and beat these other guys off. But there's a lot more to this Cup too, and I think we'll be judged not just by whether it's a good Cup in Barcelona, because I have no doubt it will be a great Cup in Barcelona, but whether we defend it successfully, and also whether we leave lasting legacy in the marine industry under hydrogen, and whether we are successful and in non-tokenism of diversity in women's sailing, and actually that we try and really make a meaningful difference in that respect as well.
Grant Dalton, we're all very excited. Thank you so much for your time. We know you're a busy man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Grant Dalton, speaking there passionately about his role and his responsibility as the defender of the America's Cup to deliver a world-class sporting spectacle. Grant, many, many thanks for your time. Now, one of the teams eagerly awaiting the announcement on the venue for the Cup is the team that really captured the hearts of anyone watching the Challenger Series unfold in Auckland 2021. Their campaign was dealt a serious blow when a full-speed capsize ripped a hole in their AC37, almost sinking millions of dollars of sailing hardware. But American Magic are back representing the original holders of the Cup, the New York Yacht Club, and back with the one and only Terry Hutchinson heading the campaign. Terry, many thanks for joining us. It's great to have you on the podcast again. You're becoming a bit of a regular.
Thank you, Shirley. It's great to be here.
We're talking to you remotely, of course, Terry. What are you up to these days? What's going on?
Yeah, well, we're in Newport, Rhode Island right now. We have a 35-person design team over in the corner on the other side of the room. And we've been going through, really the final version of the AC75 rule and working on getting our processes in place for designing, hopefully the fastest AC75 in the world. But the competition's quite stiff. And so, I don't say that lightly because, there's going to be it's going to be an incredible evolution of these boats.
I'm going to ask you about that in just a moment, but let's talk the event, the AC37, and of course a big announcement this week. As we all know, the next Cup will be held in the Spanish city of Barcelona.
Yeah.
Firstly, Terry, how did this news go down with the team at American Magic?
We were pretty happy. We were relieved. I think the Barcelona venue itself is going to be really good for the America's Cup. I think it's really good for all the teams. It opens up a lot of possibilities to be able to sell corporate sponsorship in a meaningful way. It's centrally located for the world, really, and while Auckland will always be an incredible venue, an incredible place to win the America's Cup, it's one of those, it's almost like the event's evolving a little bit out of that. And I'm sure there's a lot of he said, she said with that decision, but at the same time, from an American Magic perspective, I think we're pretty happy with it being that much closer to home.
It does feel like an exciting option. I mean, as we know, there were 4 possible venues in the final mix. Plus, of course, there was potential originally for the regattas to stay in Auckland.
Yeah.
What does this decision mean to an East Coast American team? Just talk to me a little bit about, operationally, commercially.
Yeah.
What does it mean to American Magic?
Well, logistically, it gets a lot easier. The time zone, we're 6 hours away on the time zone. And so from a global operational perspective, it's heaps easier. If we choose to ship things on a boat, it's 10 to 12 days to Barcelona versus 35 to 40 days to Auckland. And so in a very simple way, it gets a lot easier in that capacity. It's I think in the other side of it is that we're more familiar with working inside Europe, the quantum racing and the Bellamente. We do a lot of racing in that part of the world. And so, we already have a list of suppliers that we can draw off of to help us, which is also great. And that's not saying that Auckland wasn't incredible in that way, but it did take time to find our feet. And so in that regards, I think, you can easily see the operation being a lot easier for us simply because we're closer.
I'm sure you've been working on it for some time, but it does kind of feel like, the red button has been pressed and we're off. Is that the sense in the team as well?
Well, as you rightfully point out, we've been going since October, and getting a lot of the design team up and running. And so, this was a big hurdle because the threat of some of the other venues were going to preclude us from being in the event. And so in that vein, it's nice to have some clarity here I think we applaud the defender and the challenger of record for the work to getting this across the finish line. And, I think the defender knew our positions on certain places, and, and I don't think we were a minority there. So it's nice to see the event going to a place where there's a great maritime heritage. Obviously, the Olympics being there, there's a logical pathway to the America's Cup being there, which is good. So we're excited by it.
Let's talk about it as a sailing venue. How well do you know it?
I've only done 52 regattas there. And we sailed there in June and July where there were great sea breezes. So as we've been analyzing a little bit of the weather data for September, October, it'll be a different event. And it's not going to be the sea breezes of the midsummer. And so I think, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I as a challenger, AC36 presented a new opportunity with a new class rule, and you always knew statistically when there was a new rule, the chances of success were always higher. Here, the defenders taking an aggressive decision, and they're pulling themselves out of sleeping in their own beds, going to their own coffee shop, going to their own grocery stores, and that's as a competitor you can't overlook that, and so. I'm excited by the opportunity. I also recognize that, all the teams are really, really good. So, we know how this game goes, and, we lived it to the nth degree in the last one. So I think, I'm excited by the opportunity in front of us.
What's your initial weather studies looking like? What's it showing up?
Yeah, kind of a light to medium regatta, more of a 8 to 14 knot type of venue, where the potential for higher wind strengths probably is not as much that time of year. The sea state's going to be an interesting one. We haven't collected as much data on that, but there's certain directions there that you get a big ocean swell, and we've experienced that there. When you look at the race course, you can see that they're positioning it, at least the preliminary stuff that we've seen is kind of along the beach, and so but there is a big breakwall there as well. And so the feedback off the breakwall, if there's any sea state, you're ripping around in a boat that's riding, a meter off the water, and the rudder elevator is probably 250 off the water or in the water. And you don't want that to breach. So I think the conditions themselves are going to lend it to the fact that the boat has been made lighter. It's improved the downrange capabilities of the boat. So you're going to see a faster boat in those conditions.
Interesting. It's not a straightforward venue by any stretch of the imagination. But as you say, Terry, it was host to the Olympics in 92, of course. And we've done our research. The US sailing team bagged 9 medals in 92 from 10 classes. Their biggest ever medal haul from an Olympic Games. Yeah. It's a good omen, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And, yesterday when we were speaking with Chris Bedford, who was there on site forecasting, he reminded us of the success that the U.S. team had there. And certainly you'd love to follow in those footsteps. And, but as we know, as we've learned the hard way, this is a funny old game. And we've learned it now over 5 cycles. And, being successful here is going to take a combination of a lot of things going reasonably well. As we were talking earlier, the rule is very complex, and the subtleties in it, always leaves your head scratching a little bit when you're thinking about what the writers were truly after in writing this rule. And so, balancing a boat that has the ability to be developed through the regatta, and then having the sailors that understand the boat to develop through the regatta, I think those are going to be key components.
The last time we spoke on the podcast, Terry, it was just after Auckland, in that horrible grey period, that awful period of uncertainty where reviews and re-signing backers make life pretty hard. But American Magic are very much back again, representing the New York Yacht Club again. Yeah. Give us a quick rundown of where the team is at and what can happen now that we have a venue. Yeah, well, I'm really excited by a couple things. The first is our partnership and relationship with the New York Yacht Club. It's a AC37 and it's an AC38 relationship. So, incredibly grateful to
Commodore Zabatakis and the Flags for entrusting us with that responsibility, because it's the New York Yacht Club, and they have obviously a history with the America's Cup, and so to be given that honor and responsibility is very meaningful. And then equally as important is the support of Hap and Doug and their commitment to the America's Cup, as they were here last night interacting with the team. Hap is always so succinct and in his words, where he basically said, look, when I start something, I don't stop until we're successful. I've run my businesses that way. I race Bellamente that way. And he's right. So, and then Doug will remind us how crazy we all are, and we all kind of nods our heads yes. And but if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And so I think their commitment to the team, their commitment to the setup that we started, things that I don't appreciate is that these two gentlemen have, they've started businesses that have succeeded. They understand the cost of a startup and what that means, way more than I do. And so I know as a team, we're incredibly grateful to have their support.
What were the takeaways for the team from Auckland? I mean, going into a second campaign now, that continuity is always a massive advantage for a team.
Yeah.
What may the team build on, and what will the team do differently?
Well, the first one, which I think is a powerful one, is that we've implemented a more business-minded CEO in Mike Kaiser, and Mike has worked with Doug and for Doug in the past 15 years. So he has a long relationship with Doug and in that environment. And so, that there's certain parts of it. I always kind of equate it to a football game where there's offense and defense and special teams. And if one part of those aren't really firing on all cylinders, then you probably don't win the game. And here it's a little bit of the same thing. I think we had an incredible sailing operation in AC36, and we executed things, to a really high level all the way through the cycle. But in the business side of it, where we're trying to develop partnerships and relationships with serious companies, we need to have somebody that can understand the interactions of a boardroom and understand high level executives and how to communicate the needs of what they have and what we're doing. And so having Mike come on board helps a lot in that financial responsibility side, which is a big one for Hap and Doug. I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. And so having that discipline is critical. The next part of it that you have to be critical of is how the sailors race the boat. Granted, we didn't have wide sample size based on us, and what happened to Patriot. We raced the boat well during the Christmas Cup. We were exposed to Patriot's weaknesses on the first couple of days of racing. We knew we weren't going to be strong there, so you have to look at that with a honest eye. And again, Hap and Doug committed to 2 AC40s, so we're going to increase the competition inside the team, and people are going to have to fight for their spots, which is important. And then, thirdly, I think, like you're talking about with the designers, we went into a bit of a hibernation through 9 of the 12 months in 2021, and so we lost part of our designers to other teams, but we did retain a high level of our boat builders and our production side. We did retain probably 35-40% of our designers from the last go around, and we've added in new minds and new designers. Some that were with Ineos and some that were with Luna Rossa, which is exciting to listen to that, what they thought and their development and their pathway to the the Prada Cup finals. And so, you can't help but be encouraged by what you see. But I also recognize that, part of the team is new. And so learning to talk to each other, getting all the design process in place it's exactly that. It is a process. It's not like you just automatically whip up a boat. And, I think as Britt said yesterday, this is probably the most complex boat to design because of the interactions of everything on the boat. and the potential for speed and how you draw priorities to certain parts of the design, knowing that every single part of the design has to be thought about when considering another feature on the boat. And I mean, that's kind of an obvious statement. It's how we do our 52s or how we do the 72s. But the speed potential is so much greater that you really have to, you have to give it some serious consideration, and the hydrodynamic and the aerodynamic effects of the boat, because of the speed that the boat travels. It's so much more meaningful than something that you and I are used to sailing. So it's even as I'm saying, it's a bit overwhelming, but it's an awesome position to be in, because you get to see and experience and listen to what these really smart people are talking about. So I'm excited by it.
New Zealand and the Challenger record, Ben Ainsley's Britannia team, of course, have been very keen to keep the class rule of the AC75. I mean, just run us through any changes that we'll see from the last Cup to this edition in terms of that class rule.
Yeah, the most noticeable is the boat's 1,000 kilos lighter. The foil arms are a bit longer, so the boat's going to fly higher. And you've gone from 11 grinders, so to speak, to 4 cyclists on the boat. And so you're going to have a power unit on the boat with the cyclers, and then you're going to have, it'll be interesting to see how teams set their boats up, whether they're sailors from AC36 who are great athletes that transition into cyclists and have sailing experience, or if you're just going to hand all the responsibility off to the 4 other sailors to produce the speed for the boat and just ask the guys to create oil all the time. So, there's some decisions there. When you look at the AC40 and how the 40 is set up, that boat is specifically set up to have 2 helmsmen. So, you can always give a good nod to Luna Rossa for how they set up their boat in AC36, and I would suspect you'll see the fleet gravitate in that direction. But there's a lot to do if you gravitate that way, there's a lot to do for 4 people to sail the boat properly. And then you have to have the oil to make sure you got enough power in the boat. So really the weight, no code 0, 3 less people, and the bigger foil and the deeper foil arm are going to be, the most noticeable to the public.
And looking at the protocol, the next big event in the timeline is new teams. So at this stage, just Alinghi being able to sail an AC75.
Yeah.
But after we see the entry period close in July, then mid-September, you could sail an AC75. Would that possibly see you sail Patriot? Is that allowed? Or do you have to wait to sail the new AC75? What's the sailing plan?
Yes, that's a great point. So from September 17th onward, you can sail a version 1 AC75. And I suspect you'll see us out on the water later in the year in that. And, you learn so much and you get to see so much from the previous event that, there's certain things that we want to try out. And you're limited on what you can do, but, our schedule will have us developing systems in Patriot, and, she deserves to be back out on the water again. So I think we're gonna follow that philosophy.
And finally, Terry, you were very candid on the podcast after Auckland. We saw how ending the campaign in the manner that it happened, through a capsize and all the issues that brought, it was clearly hard to take. I mean, how do you feel personally now, back on track and with a clear road to the next America's Cup wide open ahead of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit relieved. It's been a long year. And, the team itself has endured a lot of different things. And so I'm proud of the fact that, the team has stuck together. I'm proud that Hap and Doug have committed to backing us into AC37. My brother made a funny comment to me a couple weeks ago where he said, "Man, you're lucky you still have a job." And I thought, he's not wrong. But, the relationships that we have, and, I think it was one of our strengths in AC36 as a team. We had a very tight, close group, and that type of bond comes from Hap and Doug as well. And so last night when we were at our design team meeting, and they're in there with the sailors and the designers and the boat builders, and we're having a team dinner last night at the cookhouse. It's got that same as it ever was feel to it, which is I think it's important, because as a team culture, we need to be able to make sure that we rely on each other. And that was so on display in AC36, especially towards the end of the event. So to have that carry through into AC37, to have their support, in simple terms, to know that they have my back and the back of everybody else that's part of this team and family, you can't help but feel good about that.
Terry, all the very best with the campaign.
Thanks, Shirley.
We look forward to seeing you in Barcelona soon.
Me too. Thank you.
So good to have American Magic back challenging for the America's Cup. Our sport needs ambassadors like Terry, so to Terry Hutchinson, a big thanks for his time. We wish him and his team all the best. In fact, if you haven't done so already, American Magic's Paul Goodison was on the pod a couple of editions back, talking us through a career that of course includes the Challenger Series in Auckland. It's a great listen. To everyone that's helped put this edition together, especially to the tireless Hamish Hooper at Emirates Team New Zealand. Hoops, a massive thank you. That man never stops working. And to Sarah Hawkins at American Magic, many thanks too. Some of you may have noticed the pod's a touch late this month. It's a busy time of year here in Cowes. Amongst other things, the double-handed offshore season is just around the corner. And there's a talented bunch flat out prepping our new shiny Geno Sunfast 3300 for the season. I'm sailing with the legendary Dee Kafari this summer. If you've not heard her chat on the podcast, give it a listen. 6 times around the planet, the Fonde, the Volvo, she's an offshore machine. It's going to be good. And similar to last year, we'll be filming the whole journey as we build up to the mammoth 1,800-mile round Britain and Ireland later this summer. Watch out on my social media for links to the films. They'll be in the usual spot on YouTube if you want to check them out. If you've enjoyed the pod and would like to support it, please do head over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast. We work hard to bring you a real quality ad-free listen. It's lovely to have your support. So many, many thanks for that. And thanks too to another incredibly busy talent, the tireless Tim at Vertigo Films, putting in the hours producing these podcasts. Tim, as ever, a giant thank you. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Have fun on the water and sail safe, everyone.
This is Castle 1. Race officer speaking.
Lane line is on boundary up ahead, 35 seconds out.
A bit lower and faster here.
That's a good one, Jimmy.
Still gaining on the lane line now.
We're looking at 10-5 and 42. Matching him on the boundary, yeah. Copy.
This is Castle 1 standing by. Out.